everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm gonna be talking about my favorite books of 2024, and you should watch the entire thing because the last book, aka my favorite book, truly changed my life, and it will change your life. So before we start, I want to do a quick thank you guys for watching. I posted my first video today, and I just want to say thank you to my Bookstagram community because you guys are so sweet and I love you guys. That being said, let's get into it. Now, this actually is a top 10. I have 7 actual favorites and 3 honorable mentions. And the first honorable mention is 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. This is a retelling of the fairy tale where the 6 brothers turn into cranes. I don't know the name of that, but I read it as a kid and it feels like such a fever dream. But I was really happy to read this book because I feel like it retold it really well. Not only is it a retelling, but also a fantasy inspired by Chinese culture, which I thought was super refreshing amidst all the European fantasy and everything. We follow our girl Shiori, who is a princess in this world. She has 6 brothers and she's gonna be married soon. She also has magic, which she's not allowed to, and one day she witnesses her stepmother do magic and her stepmother curses her and she's not allowed to speak for an entire year. She also gets a bowl stuck to her head, so that's interesting and it's so funny. Also, her 6 brothers get turned into cranes. She only has a year to figure this out before she gets permanently stuck in the cranes. I really had a fun time with this book. Shiori as a character is kind of irritating, but I love her, and she just had such a weird situation and it was so stressful because I wanted her to get her brothers back and I want her to speak again. And then she runs into her love interest, which is the guy she's supposed to marry, and he's like the sweetest thing. I love him. And just the whole journey of her like trying to reverse the spell is so cool. But the entire time it's like so stressful because she can't speak, she can't communicate. It definitely gives like Little Mermaid vibes, and it is very cool and it's very magical. And I would recommend this to people who are big fans of like fantasy retellings. Also, those of you who like the love trope where it's like arranged marriage. I would not have you be alone, Lena, not in your joys or your sorrows. I would wish your strand nodded to mine always. I love Takan, I love him. So that's 6 Crimson Cranes. And my next honorable mention is Thieves Gambit by Kavion Lewis. And this book was so much fun. If you liked Loot or Mr. Lemoncello's Library as a kid, you're gonna love this. So essentially we follow our main girl Ross. Her family are like thieves. She gets invited to this competition with all these other like teenage thieves, and they have this competition to see who's the best thief. And then the games are like the trials are so much fun, and the team ups and like betrayals and the other characters are just so much fun. And like, I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot about like thieving and like stealing stuff, so it's interesting to see how their minds work. The last honorable mention I have is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, and I read this because I loved Divine Rivals last year and I thought I'd check out more of her work. I think this is inspired by Irish culture. So sorry if I'm getting that wrong. But we follow this island and it's split up into 2 clans and they like hate each other. I think they're separated by a river actually. We follow our main guy Jack, who is from the island and he went to the mainland for something, but he's coming back to the island, and it turns out a bunch of young girls are missing from one of the clans in the island, so they're really confused. And there's also magic in this world. It's elemental magic. I swear they like talk to the wind. And Jack is a musician, so she like plays the harp or something, and then like it convinces the wind to do stuff. To figure out what's happening to these missing girls, he has to team up with his childhood enemy, the princess of the clan. We also follow other characters on this island. We follow this couple who's raising a kid. If you like Divine Rivals, you like this because not that Jack and Adara are like Roman and Iris, but they kind of give the same energy. They're very sweet and it's a slow burn, so I love that. I honestly don't really read a lot of cozy fantasy, so, and I wouldn't call this cozy, but I just love this world and like how we like connect to the nature of it. From your life came mine. I would not exist if you had been born in the East. I'm but a verse inspired by your chorus, and I will follow you until the end, when the isle takes my bones, and my name is nothing more than a remembrance on a headstone next to yours. I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to read these, but my voice is not suited for this. Now we're on to the actual list. The 7th favorite book I read this year was Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this is my favorite book out of the Natural series, and this book is like why I love the Naturals. And the Naturals is about a group of teenagers who work for the FBI, and they work on cold cases, so like cases that aren't active but like they go back in at like different angles and try to solve it. Naturals are such a found family and they're so sweet, and the Killer Instinct specifically focuses on Dean, which is like the main love interest. Dean's father is a serial killer, and there's like been these murders that have been happening that have been like him, but like his father's in jail, so it can't be him. The book just like promises and what it's doing. Like I love the premise, I love the family ties because it's like emotional, it's suspenseful, there's stakes that are happening, but then also there's just like a lot of like stupid teen drama. I hate the love triangle, but like there's like the dynamics in the team is so fun, and it's just doing what it's promising, so that's why I love this book. If you like the Inheritance games, you'd like this. I also think it's similar to Criminal Minds, but I've never seen that show, so I don't really know. But if you like true crime, you're definitely gonna like this. And it's like true crime with found family. The only like found family like team I can think of is like Outer Banks. If you like anything of like what I've just described, the Naturals. The 6th favorite book I have is Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter, and I am Liz West trash. Like I love them, and I know this book is controversial, but I love second chance romance, and this book made me realize that, so that's why it's here. It has changed my life. It's so good. If you like second chance romance. If you don't, this book is not for you. I'm so sorry. You don't have to read this. You can just stop at Better Than the Movies. This is the sequel to Better Than the Movies, which was intended as a standalone, but then it got really popular, so now you get a second one. And in this book, they do break up, but it's about them getting back together, and I just love reading about the feelings that they had for each other and how they get back to each other, and just the way they think about each other and the way they talk, and their dynamic is so good. It's crazy, and I can't explain why I like this book. I just had the best time reading it and like getting back into Liz and Wes. And to recommend Better Than the Movies, I'd say like any teen rom-com. If you like any teen rom-com, read Better Than the Movies. Nothing Like the Movies, I'd say Yoko by Maisie Peters, I Love You, I'm Sorry by Gracie Abrams, and We Don't Talk Anymore by Charlie Puth. That's the vibe. If you like the vibes, read it. The 5th favorite book I read in 2024 was Parable of the Sower, and this book is crazy to just like casually mention. It starts taking place in 2024, and it involves somebody running for president with the slogans "Make America Great Again." And I read this before the election, and then I ended up buying it like the day after, and I was like, how did she predict this? Like, that's actually insane. And we follow dystopian America. The world is like up in flames. Like there's gangs everywhere, going nowhere safe. There's like no jobs right now, and that's like you know, the middle class is dealing with this. They don't really talk about the upper class, but there are still like elections and stuff. So like I'm assuming the upper class is doing fine. It's really just like everybody below them that's like suffering. We follow our main girl Lauren with her family, and they are just trying to survive, and they literally have like all their stuff piled up in the living room just in case they need to bolt and run. Eventually Lauren has to like go off on her own. She's trying to go someplace better, and so she teams up with like other people who are trying to go north, and it's like about her coming to terms with the world and her faith in the world. Her father is a priest, and so she's always had like this hope for the world. She's living in this time where things are absolutely crazy, and what I found was like the most interesting is that she has so much hope for the future, and she develops this mindset called Earthseed. It's about like growing and changing like within the world. I think it's so inspiring to read a book where the world is absolutely trash, but yeah, our main character has so much resilience. Also, this book is like mainly they're just like trying to survive. So if you like this type of stories where they're just trying to like get from point A to point B and they're trying to like survive in between, you'd like this. Everybody should read this because it's taking place right now. This was written in the 90s, I want to say. It was written 30 years before it's taking place now. Like, you should read it because it's scary how accurate it is. And I don't know what the world was like 30 years ago, so I don't know how being there felt, but reading the book now, it's not dissimilar to how I'm feeling now. Live. That's all anybody can do right now. Live, hold out, survive. I don't know whether good times are coming back again, but I know that won't matter if we don't survive these times. My fourth favorite book of 2024 is Forget Me Not by Alison Derrick. It's a sci-fi YA romance about, I can't remember. I know their names are Nora and Stevie, but I don't remember which one is which. So we follow the girl and the love interest. The girl, she's planning to run away with her girlfriend, and then all of a sudden she has this like freak accident. She has amnesia, and she doesn't know where she is, and she doesn't even know she has a girlfriend. And she had this whole like secret life with her girlfriend that she kept hidden away from her friends and her family. Her life has changed so much in the past couple of years or something. Her friends don't even know her that well. Her family doesn't know her that well. She's constantly lying to everybody, so she's like living a fake life. And then when she like has amnesia, she has to like literally live that life, and her just like do what her friends and family are guiding her to do. And then her girlfriend is like heartbroken because she doesn't remember. But slowly they find their way back to each other and everything. And what I'm describing doesn't sound like it'd be life-changing, but the way the romance is so sweet. Author and her life in real life definitely mirror the characters in this book, and it's just so sweet to read about these characters and this romance. My favorite romance books usually are like tension or like banter, or they have like good chemistry, but there's just like so much love between these girls. Like it was such a unique experience for me. And so I think you'd like this book if you like amnesia tropes. Somehow, when I'm with you, some deep down part of me remembers and tells me that you're right, that we are everything. It's hard to explain. I don't know how this is possible, but I don't think I ever really stopped loving you. Number 2 books are nonfiction. So I decided to put nonfiction at the top of my list because they changed my list so drastically. If you're not interested in nonfiction, then this is my number 1 fiction book of 2024. And this is A Woman Is No Man by Etsafarum. In A Woman Is No Man, we follow 3 generations of this Palestinian American family. We start off with the middle one, who her name is Isra, and she is from Palestine. She's getting married to a Palestinian guy in Brooklyn. And she has to move from a country she knows to like a country unknown, and with a man she's barely met, and the situation is just very scary. And she just hopes that she can still read and that the guy will be nice. And then the next perspective is from her daughter, like 18 years in the future. We found out that Isra is missing. And Dea is also about to be looking around to get married. We also follow Isra's mother-in-law, Farida. And this book is about so many topics that this is why it's the number 1, because like there's so much that happens in this book, and it's just in another level because it tackles so much. The main thing it tackles is the role of wives and mothers in the Arab communities, and I thought that was just so interesting to read about, because the patriarchy affects like all cultures and everything, but it was so interesting to just hear these women's perspective, which we normally don't get to see, and see how it's like justified. Like throughout the story, you can see them being manipulated into just losing themselves. It's also about how generational trauma gets passed down. Like these 2 generations are dealing with stuff that they don't like dealing with it, so you think they completely get rid of it, but instead they like inherit it, pass it down. And there is also specifically like a domestic violence plotline, and it's heartbreaking to see how that is just like swept under the rug in this community. There is hope though, because like the 3rd generation, Dea, she really questions all this, so you really follow her thinking. This book is, well, one, if you wanted to learn more about how the patriarchy just like bleeds through generations, and if you want a good book about like domestic violence. Anyway, this book changed my life because like anytime I think about the women in my family, I'm like, oh my god, like I don't get to know their story. Where I come from, voicelessness is the condition of my gender, as normal as the bosoms on a woman's chest, as necessary as the next generation growing inside her belly. But we'll never tell you this, of course. Where I come from, we've learned to conceal our condition. We've been taught to silence ourselves, that our silence will save us. It is only now, many years later, that I know this to be false. Only now, as I write my story, do I feel my voice coming. Okay, well, that wraps up my favorite fiction reads, but I do still have 2 nonfiction reads. I'd like to shout out a memoir called They Called Us Exceptional by Prachi Gupta. It's hard for me to talk about this book because I relate to it so much, and it's genuinely so therapeutic. If you are a brown girl specifically, but just like an immigrant child, please read this book and just thank me later. We follow Prachi Gupta, who is an Indian American growing up in, I want to say, the 90s, but I do not remember. She's a millennial though, so like around that time. And she was born, I can't remember where she was born, but it was a primarily white community. So not only did she not fit in at school or with her friends or anything, her dad had like insanely high expectations for her because he felt like because he immigrated to America that like they could do anything and like they should be able to do anything. And it talks about how the parents like perspective, but specifically the father's perspective specifically, just like had a hold on the author's mindset. Like she felt like she could only do certain things and could only go in certain paths, and she had passions but she was never able to fulfill them. And it's just so interesting to see how she gets out of that and is able to realize all of these things and teach me about it. And then her father not only had expectations on her, but he also had expectations on her brother, which ended up really horrifically. And then even like her mother, she immigrated to this country with him and had like no support, and she just had to like be with him the entire time. Like she wasn't in a power position. She wasn't in a position of power to like stop it. The main thing this talks about is the model minority myth, because they are like graciously invited into this country, they have to be the perfect people, they have to be the perfect citizens, they have to contribute the best to society. And that combined with the American dream really talks about how that negatively impacts like every aspect of your life. Like in my opinion, like you should strive to be the best, but if that's the only thing you're going towards, then you're never going to be happy. So it talks about how she never feels fulfilled, but more specifically it talks about how her dad doesn't feel fulfilled. If you are interested in like learning about the American dream and how it affects like real people, read this. If you're an immigrant kid and you feel like your parents have like really high expectations on you, this book is great for that. Yash and I both thought that Papa's anger stemmed from the pressure he felt as a single income earner and the sacrifices he made to give us a good education, an opportunity that he had never had as an immigrant boy struggling in a new country, and one that I was now squandering. Papa, too, framed his medical school debt and long hours at the hospital as a sacrifice that, like so many immigrant parents make, was in service of offering Yash and me a better future. But in reality, Papa was not a recent immigrant struggling to make ends meet. His debt was a result of a decision he had made to leave a lucrative career path for one he had considered more prestigious, and he had intentionally chosen a partner who did not have a career to compete with his own. The favorite book I read in 2024 is actually the first book I read in 2024, and I wanted to put this off. I did not want to read it because it was a nonfiction book. Nonfiction never really truly changed my entire perspective until now, and that is Cobalt Red by Siddharth Kara. This book talks about cobalt mining in the Democratic Republic of Congo. If you don't know what cobalt is, you're using it right now, because it's used in rechargeable batteries like we use in phones, tablets, computers, everything. If you didn't know what cobalt is, it goes to show that something you use in your everyday life is something that people are dying for. From my experience before reading this book, I kind of knew child labor was a thing. I kind of knew labor was a thing, but I didn't think it was something, it was happening for resources like to be used in everyday objects. Like I thought it was just diamonds or like specific luxury items. It's not. It's for everyday things. People in all over the world are dying just so people in the Western world can have comfort in everyday things. And I'm ashamed to say that I didn't know this is happening, and I'm ashamed that even though we know this is happening, we just won't talk about it because we want our comforts. This journalist, Dr. Kara, he goes to Congo and spends like day-to-day lives with these citizens, and it's just so heartbreaking is such a weird word because these are real people and we could do real things to help, but these people are spending hours or spending like their entire day just so they can have minimum wage. They can't even buy the batteries that they work to build. Like, that's how much money they're making. He not only goes day to day with the workers, but he goes day to day with the mining companies who employ these workers. And then he follows tech company people who are the ones that are getting this cobalt. And he like talks about like CEOs, and just my lack of knowledge really disgusted me. I just wanted to know more because I couldn't believe that I didn't know this. Foreign mining companies would argue that they do not employ artisanal miners, so the responsibility is not theirs, even though the cobalt from artisanal digging ends up in their supply chains, and even though in some cases they allow artisanal miners to work on their concessions to boost production. The government of the DRC would argue that they do not have the money to support good wages or other income schemes, even though mining concessions are sold for billions of dollars and royalties and taxes in the billions are collected each year based in no small part of the value of the minerals excavated by artisanal miners. Cobalt refiners, battery manufacturers, and tech and EV companies would argue that the responsibility should be borne downstream, even though the scramble for cobalt only exists because of their demand for it. Therein lies the great tragedy of the Congo's mining provinces. No one up the chain considers them responsible for the artisanal miners, even though they all profit from them. Thank you guys so much for watching my favorite books of 2024. Please let me know your thoughts on these books, and please let me know your favorite books from 2024. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.